Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of You Are a Treasure. My name is Anne-Marie, and I have the honour and the privilege to help and support my friend Anna, not only in setting up this podcast, but also in taking part in today's episode. Part 1 of From Surviving to Thriving. Today, Anna will be sharing with us some of the very significant moments in her life that have, in a lot of ways, contributed towards making her into the amazingly thoughtful, generous, and creative woman that she is today. Of course, it is impossible to cover everything she's gone through in her life, but we will hear some of the highlights along her journey. Anna's story, from surviving to thriving. To give you a bit of a background on who Anna is and where she is from, Anna was raised in a little town named Fushares, located in the north of Albania. She spent her entire life there until she made the big decision to move to Australia in 2008. The more you get to know Anna, the more you realize just how passionate she is about helping others. I have known Anna for quite a while now, since we go to the same church and we actually serve on the same team. I do know some things about her life, but I am very intrigued to know more. Over the years that I have known her, I have observed that she is unfailingly positive and always uplifting to those who come across her path. She is overwhelmingly generous, loving and gracious, and whenever she can find anyone going through a difficult time, she is always there to be the understanding, supportive friend. Not only is she kind and understanding to everyone she meets, she is always thinking of ways in which she can bless someone. In particular, she especially loves to make a difference by praying for people and leading them to Jesus, the way, the truth, and the life. Throughout this 3-part series, From Surviving to Thriving, you'll hear a lot about Anna's journey with Jesus, as her decision to become a Christian was a massive turning point in her life. Some of you may be thinking that Anna has been in a war or something like that, and in some ways I suppose she has been. We can all be in a war or a battle during different times and different seasons of life, can't we? Today, we will focus briefly on Anna's childhood and the challenges she faced along the way. But please don't forget, this is only part 1 of a 3-part series. In part 2 and 3, we will learn how Anna was able to overcome these challenges and how we also can grow and learn from these things that she has gone through, the way that she has responded to the many difficulties in life, and also hearing about where she's drawn her strength from in order to overcome these things. It truly is inspiring. Well, I think it is about time that we hear from the lady herself. Let's welcome Anna.
I am very excited to share more about my life. And to be honest, I don't know where to even start, as there is so much that I want to share. And my hope is that everything that I'll share will relate to those listening and remind them that they are not the only ones being challenged and struggling. I was born and raised in Albania. Just for everyone's information, Albania is a little country in Europe. We see snow every year. I come from a reasonably big family and I lived most of my life in my hometown, Fushares. My hometown is in North Albania. Beautiful little town. I'll keep sharing parts of my story as I keep posting, but I would like to share with you all some highlights, and my hope is that you'll be encouraged, inspired and refreshed while you listen to my story from surviving to thriving. I was raised with my mom, dad, 2 brothers and 2 sisters. I remember being a little girl and playing in the mud with my siblings and cousins. In Albania, most people used to be very poor because we are impacted by communism. Also, we hardly had anything. I remember so clearly going to rubbish places looking for things. As kids, it was like a celebration for us to find out that there was a new rubbish thrown in the mountain of rubbish, and we would go as soon as we hear about it, straight away.
You know, this is the incredible thing about Anna. She is so open and honest and vulnerable, and so happy to share about what she's been through. I know that a lot of us listening will not have had this kind of experience, getting excited over the new rubbish on top, going through that mountain of rubbish. And I think it is really amazing that she is sharing these things with us today. And I really can't wait to hear what else she has to say. But her talking about her beautiful country as well, and that she will share more in future episodes. I don't know about you, but I don't know that much about Albania, but I definitely want to know more, especially now that I've met someone so amazing such as Anna from this country. Well, I think it's time now to hear some more specific events from her childhood.
My parents have told me that when I was 6 months old, they discovered that I had a serious condition which affected my both legs. If the doctors didn't treat it as soon as possible, it would impact my ability to walk. By the way, I'm so grateful that they did everything they could to take me to the hospital, considering that we didn't have enough finances to even cover our daily food. I truly appreciate my parents for making sure that I'll be okay, as these conditions don't really get diagnosed and followed up in Albania.
Gosh, well, I never knew about Anna's legs before this podcast, and she mentioned during recording that she actually still has a little bit of pain in her hips, I believe. And I just think it's amazing that despite all the issues with not having the finances and the hospital being so far away, that she was able to get the treatment that she needed. That's just amazing.
I remember going to school on first day of year 1 and missing my mom so terribly. I also remember always being very scared of the teachers. Also, I remember wearing the same clothes every day, as we didn't have the luxury to have options. I think kids these days are very blessed to have lots of different options in clothing, food, and in everything else. Probably that's part of the reason why I'm incredibly grateful every day for even the little things. Just like the majority of Albanians at the time, I also experienced poverty due to the communist regime. At some point down the line, in a future episode, I'll dive more into the effects that the communist regime had, not only on my family, but everyone else around us.
We heard Anna mentioning that she comes from a big family, but I asked Anna to share just some of the highlights from her childhood, specifically today. And in particular, she had mentioned that she didn't have lots of photos as a baby, not until I think she was about 14 years old. But I asked her if she had a particular photograph in mind when she thinks of her earlier years.
I have plenty of them, and preparing for this episode, I have been inspired to go back to see the old photos. It has been refreshing to see the photos and remember some significant events. I remember being in high school and being very shy, and I don't remember studying or doing any homework at all. Maths wasn't really my cup of tea. Well, coffee, I guess, because I don't really drink tea. It's kind of a subject that I would have loved to skip. I remember that was always a dream to just pass in maths. Those times are fun to remember, but definitely weren't fun back then. By the way, my older sister is a very creative person. And I remember when I was about 14 years old, she gave me a pencil and a paper and said, "Let's create poems." We started to write, but my poems were mostly sad poetries or poems, and also I never thought that anyone will ever read them. Also, I had moments thinking, how amazing it would be if I published my book one day, but never have I imagined that I'll publish my own book, ever. Well, regards to this, I'll share more in the next episode. Today, this episode includes a lot of sad moments from my early life, but this is just part one of a 3-part series, so please don't feel too saddened about what I have to share today, because in part 2 and 3, I will cover the turning point in my life that took me out of the darkness and brought me into the light.
I'm really looking forward to hearing part 2 and 3 of the series. I believe she's got so much to share, and I know that today is mostly her challenges and the things that she's had to face in her childhood, but I can't wait to hear how she overcame things and was able to move forward in different areas. And how important is it to have people in our lives who inspire and encourage us to share our goals and dreams? In our conversation, Anna has mentioned that she used to have, or she did have, some health issues along the way. Let's hear her share some events in this area with you.
I used to get very sick with bad flu, and we're talking about it 2 weeks in bed, and also having the worst and scariest dreams that I just couldn't open my mouth to even talk about them to anyone. I also used to get car sick to a point that I thought I was going to die. And another time, I nearly got run over by a truck when I was about 14. Another situation, and I would call it miracle now, is that I got food poisoned, and I don't remember much, but I remember that I was rushed in the emergency to another town, which is about 1 hour away from my little hometown.
You know, listening to these little snapshots of Anna's childhood, of these different experiences that she's had, it's amazing to think, you know, the strength that she has today, knowing her personally, the woman that she is today, and thinking about where she's come from and what she's been through. And we know that, you know, she's not able to go into too much detail today since we don't have loads of time, but just getting a quick snapshot of the things that she had to face as a child, it makes you wonder if, you know, did she have any hope in the middle of those storms, that dark times where she felt like she couldn't talk to anyone? Because we know that hope is an expectation and a desire for a particular thing to happen. And she's shared that it was a beautiful childhood, but it was a challenging one. And so I just really want to know if Anna had hope in the midst of all these challenging times.
No, I didn't. Your question was direct, and so was my answer. Let me explain. I was sad every day, even though I was looked after from my family, but deep in my heart, I was very, very sad. Well, I would call it depressed. I didn't have much going on, but I just didn't have any hope for the future. I didn't even know how to explain my feelings to anyone, as back then in my country, only if you are crying and screaming, that means that you might be a bit sad. But still, not having hope and telling anyone, that is a taboo. It's not something that people used to talk about it. I have been here about 16 years, so I hope that this has changed. I hope so.
Were there any times in your childhood that you remember were just good times, where you had fun, where you were able to just laugh and it wasn't so dark?
I remember going to weddings and have fun, as weddings were my only hope to feel joyful and happy. But when the weddings were over, I would feel incredibly sad and empty. I used to feel very sad and down because the fun was over and we had to continue the everyday life. I used to think that that's how it's going to be for the rest of my life. I'll never be happy.
Thank you so much, Anna, for sharing such dark times. It's so tough. And I know that there will be people listening who have either gone through something similar or are currently in that place. And it's always encouraging to know that it's not just you. And so thank you so much for sharing these experiences with us today. And I can't wait to hear part 2 and 3 on how you were able to overcome that darkness, because you are so joyful and so full of life now. Knowing you personally, no one would ever know that you'd been in that such a dark place. And it's really lovely to hear about your big family and the good times, the weddings and everything, isn't it? But I do wonder, did Anna believe in God? Did she have a religion that she followed? Did she believe that God existed? I'm sure everyone here would love to know. So let's find out.
Actually, I come from a Muslim family. I had moments that I have thought that God exists. And then I would think, no, he doesn't exist. Because if he did exist, why there is so much sadness and bad in this world? Also, I remember so well in those few moments that I believed that might be a God. A thought kept coming to my mind saying, well, you swear a lot, you get angry, you fight with your siblings all the time, you are a bad person, you are not loved. Imagine experiencing all this and not knowing who to talk to and how actually to get rid of all these thoughts, because I thought that I deserve to be sad. I deserve to think this way, because I often used to get angry. So I had that big fight inside of me, and I didn't know how to explain to anyone, as no one would understand me. Also, I remember when I was a teen, a Muslim leader came to our house to tell us about Quran. I started to read the Quran, and I remember so well having the worst headache. Anyway, I didn't really follow that up, and I stopped reading the Quran. And then I started to practice Ramadan. I mentioned before that I used to get very angry and I used to get very irritated for the simple things. Deeply I knew that this is all wrong, but I just didn't know how to help myself.
It's incredible to think that this is the same person. She's so joyful and so vibrant today that you would never be able to put the two together if you put them in a room. The old Anna and the new Anna. It's definitely not the same person anymore, is it?
Well, the truth is that I have not always been like this. It takes courage to open up and be vulnerable. But the truth is that I'm not here to tell people that my life was and is amazing. My heart is to share my story, and hopefully I can relate to some of our listeners and remind them that I have walked in their shoes, probably at least in one of the stages of their lives. I'm looking forward to share about someone amazing and special that loves me unconditionally, changed my life, gave me hope and a future.
Well, that's amazing. I can't wait to hear more about it. I personally appreciate Anna's honesty and her vulnerability. We need more authentic people in this world, don't we? And Anna is definitely just that. It takes a lot of courage to be so open, and I am grateful that Anna is sharing her heart with everyone here today, including me. I know that Anna's hope is to impact people and to make a difference, and I truly hope that you feel impacted by part 1 of her life journey.
I'm thankful to everyone that is in this journey of life with me. I cannot wait to share part 2 of this From Surviving to Thriving journey. And my hope continues to be that you'll get inspired, encouraged, and hopeful through my story.
Well, that was so lovely to hear Anna share a part of her journey. You are a treasure is such a beautiful, powerful, and significant line to mention not just in this podcast, but in our everyday life. Hearing part 1 of Anna's story has made me value the importance of lifting up others and reminding them that they are important. They are precious and they are a treasure. Thank you to everyone who has joined us today. You are welcome to share this podcast with your friends, with your family, with whoever you'd like, frenemies. Until then, stay tuned, stay happy, and don't forget that you are a treasure. Love to you all, Anne Marie.